And good morning. It's time now for Panola Pride here on KGAS AM and FM and Falcon Telecable Channel 12. Panola Pride with your host this morning, Jerry Hansen.
Good Thursday morning and welcome to another edition of Panola Pride, the heartbeat of East Texas. My guest today is Mrs. LeGrone, as she is each Thursday. We talk about history around the Arklatex. Parents, I want you to get your pencil and paper out, and we're going to give you information that if your child is taking Texas history this coming year, you may want to know the facts that Mrs. LeGrone is going to talk about. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good. Then we're both good.
All right.
This is still a dry day. We could use a little rain.
Moisture would help,
Yeah.
wouldn't it?
But we're not grumbling. We haven't been too dry yet, but it's ready. We're ready for rain. Well, there have been so many questions asked every year, the same questions, and I have written about them. But apparently no one has, or most people, have not made any notations, so when the assignment is given in junior high for or maybe 10th grade, wherever they have Texas history now, then they start calling. And mamas call and say, Miss Littlebell, would you tell me such and such my child has to have? And of course, I have to go look it up again because I don't keep it at my fingertips. But for today, I thought we might just look back over the information I have given through the years. So I reviewed 10 years of the columns I've published. You know, this is the 21st year of the newspaper columns. And I went back 10 years to 1983, and that's 10 years ago, to see just what I have already researched and given out a spoonful at a time. But I thought we'd just run through the whole 10-year listing that I've done from time to time. I've done 5 different columns on firsts in this area.
Historical first
in East Texas. And they haven't all been on Panola County, but they've been on the surrounding area. And I finally come down to Carthage itself. And so I thought we'd do well if parents or students who are going to be in Texas history would jot it down so they'll have it at their fingertips. Won't have to look it up. We started with the organization of churches. Now, the organization of Protestant churches was forbidden by Mexico before Texas got her independence. And the ones that were organized before 1836 were illegal. And if Mexico found out about it, they would withdraw land promises and all this sort of thing. But the first East Texas church to continue, now we're talking about the ones that continued, there's no way to know for sure how many groups were organized at one time, but the ones that have continued just in our close surrounding area was McMahon's Chapel at St. Augustine. That was the first continued, that's still active today, church, and it was McMahon's Chapel, and it was organized at Mr. McMahon's home.
On Farm to Market Road 1.
Yeah, way out of past center, and it is the treasure. It is a Methodist church that is the oldest Methodist church continuous in Texas, our earliest Protestant church. Now, I don't think even the Catholic, now the Mexicans sanctioned the Catholic missions, but I don't think any of them have been continuous until this day with services. But McMahon's Chapel continues to be. It just has a handful, hardly a handful of members, but the whole conference sponsors that church and has an annual celebration of the first Protestant church in Texas. All right, that was 1833. We didn't have our independence.
So that was a hot church, wasn't it?
That was a hot church. The story goes that Mr. McMahon prayed all night, you know, and got the vision, and they started it sort of as a school, kind of Wesley classes, Wesley Methodist classes, and Wesley's method of Bible study, and they called it classes. And they didn't actually build the church until after San Jacinto, but they had the organization before, which would have been illegal if the Mexicans had known about it. All right, that was number one. And I've kept having questions about which was older, Old North Church, or McMahon's Chapel, or Allison's Chapel. All right, those are the three in our area that are the oldest continuous churches. Old North Church was next, and it was after the independence. It was in 1838, and that was, of course, it is still active and an interesting place to visit with the cemetery by it and everything, just this side of Nacogdoches. Okay, and we know that Reverend Reed, who came on to Panola County, was the one that organized that church. All right, then that's a Baptist church. That's, I think, the oldest continuous Baptist church in the state, maybe. Certainly in our area. And then the third one is in our county also in this area. I think rating Texas, across the whole state of Texas, Allison's Chapel is about fifth in the Protestant churches that were organized. But in Panola County, it was, well, in close in, Panola County was number 3. And it was not at Allison's Chapel where it is today, but it was the same organization. It was organized at the Williams Settlement, and there's an old cemetery there, and they still have an annual meeting. And that's a little over a mile the other side of Fairplay.
Mm-hmm.
And when that church burned, I think in the 1880s, it was moved to its present location on the highway there at Fairplay, and it's called Allison's Chapel. It was called Bethesda at first, but it's called Allison's Chapel now because Allison's gave the land for it to be reestablished. So those are 3 churches that were established before we had a Panola County.
And the church here in Panola County was established in what year?
You mean which one?
The
Methodist?
Yeah.
Oh, Methodist Church?
Mm-hmm.
1855,
Okay.
the Methodist Church. We're working on the history for it right now. But Allison Chapel predates that considerably.
Okay, and it was what, 1838?
1838, right.
So it and the Old North Church were about the same time.
Yes, and that's what the people have kept asking, which one was first. And I don't know exactly the month and date, but the same year. Allison Chapel was a Methodist church, and Old North Church was a Baptist church. And then from and next in the 1840s was this church at Clayton that Reverend Reed organized, you know, and it still has its minutes of that original meeting and all that at Clayton. So we do have churches. That church was organized, by the way, before Panola County was. Panola County was not founded until 1846. All right, then I thought we'd touch on the founding of the counties. During all of this time that we're talking about, the McMahon's Chapel was organized before we got our independence, so we didn't have any counties as such. But when we got our independence, Shelby County took in all this East Texas area. And so McMahon's Chapel was not even, it was in the Shelby County group, I guess, then. But it, of course, is not in Shelby County now. What is it? It's not Sabine County.
Yes, St. Augustine, wasn't it?
St. Augustine County is right. Yes, that's right. St. Augustine is in a St. Augustine County. Yes, well, okay, that's where McMahon's Chapel is. And as I said, it predated our freedom. But when, after the Battle of San Jacinto, Shelby was the first of the counties to be established, and it took in what is now 3 counties and parts of some others. And these 3 counties were Shelby itself, Harrison County, and then Panola. Well, this gets some names that early that we're familiar with today, and I went through all of that too. Shelby County itself was organized immediately after the independence in 1836. and it took the whole East Texas chunk here, you know. Well, I do it this way because that's the way it looks on the map.
Okay.
And it was, the whole thing was Shelby. And the whole story is, background is in Shelby County. So if you have ancestral roots in any of this area and don't find it in the county it's in now, then go back and look in the earliest Shelby County records, you might find it. Most of those have been transferred to the proper descending counties, but this has been true in all the states, that when an area gets densely settled, then it begins to break up in smaller counties. So Shelby in 1836, right after independence, then 2 years later, and I studied that petition that was presented by the northern part of Shelby County, which is what turned out to be Harrison. And it came from the northern edge all the way down to the Sabine River. And you know that cuts us half in two, diagonally. Well, all of that area that's northern Panola was in Harrison County. So some of the early settlers were first in Shelby, then in Harrison, and later in Panola, because the same land was in each one.
And probably it didn't move.
Didn't move. In fact, one lady sent me word by her granddaughter at school, that she had lived in 5 counties and never had moved out of her house. Well, this started before the Texas Revolution. She was an old lady, and it was the Texas Revolution, and then the Republic of Texas, and then Shelby, and then Harrison, and then Panola. And you wouldn't believe it until you had, you know, studied all of that descendancy. But here's some of the names that we're so familiar that were in Texas Republic now from 1836 area. John Forsyth, and they were in Shelby, but they moved on over to the Beckville area because of the warfare that was going on in Shelby, and they moved to the western edge of it to get beyond that regulator-moderator confusion. Other names that were in that were the McFaddens, the Stricklands, Bailey Anderson, the foundation of that fame, and of course many others. Jonathan McFadden, William English, and Wyatt Anderson, and David Blankenship. All these had early land grants. See, Lindsay, the Lindsay Survey, Thompson's, and Adam LaGrone was in on the early surveys. And this land that was first registered with approval of the Texas Republic had to be 1836 or later. And then by 1840s, most of the free land was taken, and the others had to buy it from those who had made land claims and got over 4,000 acres, which they couldn't deal with. It's just wild area, wilderness, and so they would sell off some land, you know. That's the way my great-grandfather got his land out here on the meanderings of Irons Bayou in 1842. He had to buy his land, but it just cost him $1 an acre. And then he improved that land and began to sell off still some more of it. So this is the way the land went in the early counties. Shelby was first, and by 1838, the northern settlers and this East Texas was more densely settled from Sabine River north, because they came in that way and settled on land that they liked in that area. So it was the most densely settled, which wasn't saying much. They were still a long ways apart. But anyway, they did get a petition into the Republic of Texas government and got a county set up. Now, people continued to move in and got the whole area settled. And by then, the people in the middle part of this still were having to go a long ways to court. This was their argument, you know. They had to ride through the forest horseback to county court. This was Harrison County. Is a long ways for these people out here on Irons Bayou to go all the way up to what is now Harrison County to court. And for a while that was at Pulaski, and then it moved up to the Marshall area. And that was a long horseback ride to go to county court. So they petitioned also. But it took some time to put that through, and it was during the time when warfare was going on in East Texas. So it took some time, and they became an official county in 1846. And at the same time, the Republic of Texas was asking for annexation to the United States because, big as we think we are, we weren't big enough to confront the nations of the world by ourselves. We needed friends. And so the leaders judged that the thing to do was to become a state of the United States. There have been times when we've threatened. In fact, we pulled off once, but we didn't get by with it. And of course, in my lifetime, there's been talk of dividing Texas into 5 states and cut down its power. But you've heard of yelling. They really yelled when they talked about it. Of course, we were biggest and grandest for so long before Alaska came in. But anyway, these are the early counties right around us. Now, the land was granted, as we said, by the time the people came in. At first, it was free land if they came in and were good people and had somebody to vouch for them. They had a document that had to be signed before they let them in. And then the land immediately became a question of who had it legally and who claimed it over somebody else. So the Republic of Texas named a traveling board, called it Traveling Board, that went from area to area to examine these land requests. And of course, they had all kinds of land grabbing. And later, and I was interested to review the fact that was a traveling board for the Republic. And later, it got down to a land board in each county. And that land board in each county, in the latter part of the Republic of Texas, which was a 10-year period from the time we got our independence till we joined the United States, from 1836 to 1846. And so they named the county court and the county clerk as the team that would handle the land requests. And had a good bit of trouble about land stealing and so on, but it took a while to get all that settled down. All right, so that's the counties. And I looked into the formation in detail of Harrison County because that gave the 1, 2, 3 steps. I mean, I found the 1, 2, 3 steps, and I found the names of people that signed that petition to have a Harrison County. And that's all the Deadwood Bunch and all of the Bethany and all those people over that way that became Panola Countyans later. They were first Harrison County, which we first Shelby and then Harrison.
Okay.
And they signed for that, but when they got densely settled, and we'll, to preserve time, we'll just explain that when they got duly settled and were ready to make their own claim for the central part, it would take in part of the river, both sides. And so that's what we did. And by 1846, got our own claim in for Panola County. All right, now then, first in Carthage. We moved into Panola County after we got to be a county. What was the first paved sidewalk? I've mentioned this time and time again. It's from the square to the depot. And all they have to do is go to the corner of that square and look on the sidewalk. It tells it. Has the whole thing inscribed in that concrete sidewalk. It's been there all these years. And people don't go down and look it up. This is what ought to happen. School kids that are studying the history of the area ought to take field trips. Parents ought to go with them and take field trips and say, this is where so-and-so happened. This is where so-and-so happened. Now, when you study this, you'll know about it. I heard one of my friends say this week that they're going to, with a grandchild who is 7 years old, the Alamo. He's talking about Texas history. I said, I'm so glad to know that these little children and my grandchildren are fixing to take their vacation. They've been to that area 2 or 3 times, but they love it, so they're going back. And this is learning history when you do that. Okay, the first Panola County, the first Carthage sidewalk was done by Carthage Book Club. Now, it was a major project. Didn't sound like all that much now. I even have the price that they had to pay for it, if I can find it here. But the Carthage Book Club has been a woman's civic club all these years. And you see, it was organized early. And it put out the first little history of Panola County in 1936. That's back there. And they did this first sidewalk in 1914. And they paid the bill for the paving, which was $900. Well, of course, you can't get a square bigger than your fist for $900 now. But people walked to the depot for trains, watched them come in, and of course, travel was by train. And that was a dusty walk. And so these ladies, one of the entertainments on Sunday afternoons was to walk to the depot as a groups of young people. So this was the first sidewalk, and it has continued to be a sidewalk, pretty worn by now, but it's been repaired some. All
Now,
right.
I have to ask, which side of the street was the sidewalk on?
Well, it was on the left going from town. It was against the buildings there on the left.
Mm-hmm.
What is that, a furniture store? Used furniture there on the corner?
Well, then it's a little mini ball now.
All right, now that is alongside that building and
So
right on down past...
That'd be the north side of Sabine.
Yes, that's right. North side of Sabine down to the depot. And we have pictures of crowds just standing by the side of the railroad watching the trains come in. That was a sight, you know. And see, and wave at the people at the windows. So this was an
I kind
event.
of wish passenger trains would come by now.
I do too. We miss passion. There are a lot of things that we've lost that were fun and would be for our children today. Well, that was the first big civic project that the book club did. Then they published, they built a building where Bell Brothers is now, and it was a book club building. There was not, except in the old courthouse, there was not a public restroom. And it was before the day of filling stations on the corners that you could drive up to the restroom. So people from out of town did their shopping in town, and restrooms were urgent. And the book club built that 2-story building there. I remember the building well before the present building was built. It belonged to the ladies of the book club. They raised the money, and then they rented the downstairs. And upstairs they had for civic, they had a restroom, a lounge for ladies, and they had a Red Cross work center upstairs. And that was book club. Again, the Women's Civic Club, and they're still doing things. They're the ones that put the gazebo on the square. You look all around, that book club has been very active through the years. So they had the first public restroom other than the old courthouse, and they were disgusted with the upkeep of those, so they made this available. They had upstairs restroom, but they also had an attendant up there that took care of babies while the mothers shopped. They had a service going. It was real great. Then the next thing, that was in 1925, they built that building. In 1927, just 2 years later, we got pavement on the square. And I have interviewed, I remember having the interview with Miss Underwood. Of course, she's now deceased, but she gave me a lovely report on what the square was like when they came to Carthage with the cotton gin and so on, how dusty it was, and what kind of celebration they had when they got the square paved. That was in 1927. It doesn't sound like a long time ago, but it is ages ago in development of modern conveniences.
Mm-hmm.
And just think how many things have happened in our lifetimes that have made life so much easier. Again, we come to what the book club did for civic progress was that little history. And I meant to pull it, but I've shown it before. And it's the only history that was written about Panola County for a long time. In fact, only really put together history until we got the big book in 1979. Well, we'll go hurriedly on. The historical markers, the first ones in the county, started in 1936 for a centennial year. And the first ones were put here by the State Historical Commission, and they were composed of the stories they could get together on the early leaders. For instance, there was one for Panola County that we now have on the square, but it was out at the line at Bethany, and not at Bethany, at Old Grand Bluff crossing, and it was mutilated until we got permission to pull it into town. That was in 1936. The one at Pulaski was erected as the first county seat, and of course it's been mutilated also. The star and emblem of Texas is stolen off of it. I don't know what they do with it because it's against the law to be caught with it, but then they mutilate them anyway. Then the one for for Reverend Reed was established. Those were the early, and they were paid for statewide, $200 each. Imagine those big tall markers for 200. You don't get them for that now,
No.
of course. All right, those were the first historical markers then in 1936. Moving on, and we're running out of time.
Yeah, we're past.
All right, the community farms out on the Old Marshall Highway. That was a kind of a commune out there, and it's still a fascinating place where the government, and this was during the Depression, you see, and 1935 is when they really started that. And the city pool that we're still using was built in 1937.
Can you believe
Public
that?
Works program. So was the city center there. The park was developed. Mayor A.L. Davis gave the land, and all of this was developed in his time of mayor. Well, Daniel Boulevard then in the 1930s was paved, and the Rose Society, I wanted to mention this, the Rose Society planted the roses in bicentennial year 1976, and we're still enjoying some of those. They're not all. And now, what are some treasured traditions? We'll go into those another time because our time, but these are the first.
And I hope that our listening audience has been taking notes, because at some point in time in your child's career, you're going to need to know.
You're going to
Yes.
know about it, right.
Ms. Grown, thank you very kindly. We're going to hurriedly move on.
Yes, I know.
Appreciate it. To our viewing and listening audience, thank you for being with us today. The High Sheriff will be our guest tomorrow. And join us again Monday for Ask the Expert. We'll be talking about automobiles on Monday. So if you got a question about your car, if it's not running right in the hot summertime, give us a call. We'll have open telephone lines. And what's your bid?
I want to tell you that what your bid was good.
It was, wasn't it?
I even had the telephone in my hand and couldn't get down. Couldn't get a line.
Yeah, we
Over and over. I dialed and I dialed. There were several items I wanted to bid
They'll
on.
be back. We'll be back Saturday with many of the same items
I
repeated.
just thought it was tremendous for the first time.
Good. We were very pleased with it
I
ourselves.
sat with it the whole time, and I had more I needed to do, but I just wouldn't leave it. You couldn't go in the other room. You'd miss something.
You might miss something. Speaking of missing something, we don't want to miss Swap Shop. If Sue Smith is back, we look forward to her talk, and then Swap Shop. And Sean, we're going to get out of the way. Take care, and may God bless.